He called it a strategic decision and erased her from the project in under 5 minutes. She didn't argue. She saved the contracts and went to lunch. 24 hours later, a $12 million due diligence paused for one reason. The inventor wasn't who they expected. The conference room smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood, the kind of room where decisions were made with confident voices and quiet knives. Sunlight slid across the glass table, catching on the metal edge of a laptop that wasn't hers anymore. "This is my strategic decision," the CEO said, not raising his voice. He didn't need to. Authority, when rehearsed often enough, becomes background music. She didn't argue. That surprised them. The slide with her architecture diagram still glowed on the screen behind him. Flowcharts, data models, a roadmap tied to projected growth. 18% quarterly acceleration, retention curves climbing like disciplined mountain trails. Numbers that had taken 2 years of experiments, failed prototypes, and midnight rebuilds. He clicked the remote. The screen went black. And just like that, she was removed from her own project. There was a subtle shift in the room, a collective exhale. Some people lowered their eyes. Others pretended to type. Office oxygen changes when someone powerful makes an example of someone competent. She felt the sting, yes, a sharp, clean line of it under her ribs. But anger is loud, and loud people lose leverage. So she closed her laptop slowly. "Noted," she said. Her calmness unsettled him. You could see it. The flicker. Persuasion works both ways. When someone expected to fight refuses to resist, the narrative fractures. The room had prepared for drama. She offered composure instead. And composure is dangerous. She gathered her notebook, her pen, her external drive. No rush. No trembling hands, because while he was performing strategy, she was remembering structure, the original invention disclosures, the early patent drafts. The contractor agreement signed before the first seed check cleared. Clauses written when the company was 3 people and a borrowed office. Clauses most of the team had never read. "HR will follow up," the CEO added, as if sealing a box. "Of course," she replied. It was almost kind. She walked back to her desk through the open floor plan, past the marketing team whispering about the upcoming $12 million round, past product managers speculating about due diligence, past the junior analyst who once told her she was the reason he joined. No one stopped her. That told her everything. At her desk, she opened a secure folder. The folder she created the week the first prototype worked, because optimism without documentation is just a gamble. Download, backup, archive, contract copies, time-stamped commits, IP assignment drafts with red lines never fully executed, emails confirming authorship. The rhythm of file transfers felt almost meditative. Across the room, the CEO laughed too loudly at something. Contagious confidence, social proof in real time. If the leader laughs, the team believes. But belief doesn't overwrite documentation. She unplugged the drive and slipped it into her bag. Then she did something that confused everyone watching through peripheral vision. She stood up and went to lunch. The elevator doors closed with a soft metallic sigh. Inside, she caught her reflection in the mirrored panel. Not broken, not furious, focused. Outside, the city was humming. Taxis slicing through traffic, steam rising from street grates like quiet warnings. She ordered a salad and sparkling water. Routine, stability, control. Her phone buzzed. 3 Slack messages, 2 missed calls, 1 from legal. Interesting. She didn't answer. Instead, she opened her notes app and wrote a single line. Ownership is not a meeting decision. The numbers replayed in her mind. Projected valuation, $80 million post-money. Lead investor rumored to anchor with $12 million pending due diligence. IP audit mandatory, inventor confirmation required. She took another sip of water. Due diligence. Such an innocent phrase. It sounds procedural, technical, almost boring. But in truth, due diligence is a spotlight, and spotlights reveal authorship. Her phone buzzed again, this time from a colleague. Are you okay? That was unexpected. Unexpected for them, not for her. For months she had sensed the shift, invitations to meetings that excluded her, slide decks edited before presentations, subtle reframing of her architecture into the company's evolution. Classic neuromarketing language, ownership diluted through repetition. But repetition doesn't rewrite legal origin. She finished lunch slowly. Back at the office, the air felt thinner. The CEO avoided eye contact. A new project lead had already been announced in the internal channel, decisive leadership optics. Persuasion again, signal strength before scrutiny. Her access badge still worked, her inbox still active, her name still listed as head of core systems, not yet erased. Legal finally called. Just procedural, the in-house counsel said. Standard documentation update before investor review. Of course, she answered. Procedural is a word people use when something is about to matter. She opened the shared drive again, but this time not to download, to verify. And there it was. The early IP assignment agreement, unsigned, draft status, never fully executed. Her pulse didn't spike, it narrowed. Because unsigned agreements are not symbolic, they are decisive. Across the floor, the CEO was explaining growth projections to someone on speakerphone. His voice carried phrases like robust pipeline, scalable architecture, foundational technology. Foundational. She almost smiled. The foundation has a name, and that name was still hers. By the end of the day, whispers had turned into structured curiosity. Why had she been removed right before due diligence? Why now? Timing is rarely accidental. She shut down her computer precisely at 6:03 p.m. On her way out, she passed the glass conference room again. The screen was on. Financial projections displayed in bold. $12 million. Numbers do something to people. They amplify belief. Neuromarketing 101. Large figures anchor trust. But numbers without verified IP, they wobble. As she stepped outside into the cooling evening, her phone vibrated once more. This time, it wasn't internal. Unknown number. She let it ring. Then it stopped. A minute later, an email notification appeared. Subject line: IP clarification, urgent before DD. Sender: the Lead Investors Fund. She didn't open it. Not yet. Because sometimes the most powerful move is to let silence stretch. And somewhere in that building behind her, someone was about to realize that removing a person is easier than removing proof. If you think this was just an internal reshuffle, you're missing the quiet shift that already began. By 8:12 a.m., the office buzz felt different. Not louder. Tighter. The kind of tension that hums beneath polite greetings and overly cheerful good mornings. The espresso machine hissed like it knew something confidential. Slack notifications popped faster than usual. The marketing team had switched from campaign brainstorming to whisper analysis mode. She arrived exactly on time. No dramatic entrance, no defiance in her walk. Just the same measured steps across the polished concrete floor. But perception had shifted. Yesterday, she had been removed from the project. Today, she was the quiet variable no one could calculate. Her inbox showed 12 new messages, 4 marked urgent. 1 calendar invite titled IP Ownership Clarification, Before Due Diligence, $12 million. There it was again. $12 million. Numbers do something extraordinary in corporate spaces. They expand authority, compress doubt, and magnify fear. Neuromarketing teaches that high-value figures activate credibility bias. People trust large sums as if money itself certifies truth, but money also audits truth. She opened the investor's email first. Polite, precise, surgical. Before proceeding with the scheduled due diligence, the fund required confirmation of all intellectual property ownership, inventor status documentation, and executed assignment agreements. Standard request. Except timing makes standard electric. Across the glass wall of the main conference room, the CEO was already inside with legal. The blinds were half drawn, a symbolic gesture, not fully transparent, not fully opaque. Persuasion again. The room arrangement had changed. The head chair positioned squarely toward the screen. Water bottles aligned. Presentation deck open to technology overview. Optics before facts. Her phone vibrated. Message from legal. Can you join at 9? She typed back one word. Of course. No defensiveness. No accusation. Calm language lowers resistance. The psychology of perception works best when you don't appear threatened. At 9:02, she entered the conference room. The CEO avoided eye contact at first, as if she were an unexpected guest in a story he had already finished writing. The lead investor joined via video. Crisp background, minimalist office, the kind of quiet wealth that doesn't need decoration. The fund's lawyer spoke first. We're conducting standard IP verification before the $12 million due diligence phase. His tone was neutral, but neutrality is often sharper than aggression. We just need clarity on inventor attribution and assignment execution. Clarity! Such an elegant word for pressure. The CEO leaned forward. The company owns all core technology. Confident, decisive, social proof through posture. The investor nodded slowly. Then the lawyer asked, could we review the signed assignment documents from the original architecture phase? A small pause. The kind that stretches. Legal shuffled papers. Opened folders. Gasped. No one slammed a hand on the gasped. No one slammed a hand on the table. But silence grew heavier. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. Can we confirm, who is the original inventor listed in these drafts? Every eye shifted toward her. She didn't move. I am, she said evenly. Not loud, not defensive, just factual. The investor leaned back in his chair on screen. The faintest hint of recalibration crossed his face. The CEO cleared his throat. This was internal structuring. We intended to formalize— Intended, the lawyer repeated gently. Intended does not equal executed. The lawyer continued, for due diligence purposes, inventor status and IP assignment must be properly documented and signed. Without that, ownership claims are exposed. Exposed. That word landed like a dropped glass. She opened her folder, the one she brought yesterday. Calmly, she slid printed copies across the table. Time-stamped commits, original disclosure forms, emails acknowledging her authorship during the early development cycle. Documented reality, no theatrics. The investor's eyes sharpened. Numbers had anchored his trust yesterday. Documentation re-anchored it now. Contagious influence works both ways. Authority can spread, but so can doubt. And currently, the lawyer asked carefully, is there a signed assignment transferring the inventor's IP to the company? Silence again. Legal answered quietly. Not fully executed. That was the fracture point. Not emotional. Structural. The CEO shifted in his chair. This is procedural. We can finalize immediately. The lawyer gave a small nod. Of course. But for the $12 million due diligence to proceed, clarity must precede valuation. Clarity before valuation. The hierarchy had just inverted. She watched the CEO realize, in real time, that removing her from a project did not remove her from its origin. Power, in offices, often depends on narrative momentum. But due diligence is a narrative interrupt. It demands proof. The investor spoke at last. "We cannot proceed without confirmed IP rights. Let's resolve inventor status first." Resolve. Such a calm word for a strategic earthquake. The meeting ended without shouting, without accusations, just measured sentences and tightened jaws. As she left the room, conversations paused mid-whisper. Word travels faster than email when money is involved. $12 million had amplified belief yesterday. Today, it amplified scrutiny. At her desk, her access permissions suddenly felt less fragile. A Slack message popped up from a senior engineer. Did they really not sign it? Another from marketing. So, what happens now? What happens now is the question that destabilizes leadership narratives. She replied to neither. Instead, she drafted a short, precise email to legal. Happy to cooperate fully in formalizing IP documentation in alignment with investor requirements. No threats, no leverage displays. Calm cooperation is disarming because it suggests confidence. Across the floor, the CEO closed his office door for the first time in months. That told her everything. At 4:17 p.m., a new email arrived from the fund's lawyer. Subject: Follow-up, inventor confirmation. Inside, a single line stood out. For clarity, the inventor is her. Not dramatic, not accusatory, just recorded. In corporate ecosystems, reputation shifts quietly. Not with applause, with alignment. And alignment had begun. If you think this was the peak of the tension, you haven't seen what happens when investors start asking questions the board can't ignore. If you were in her place, would you have stayed silent or played the long game? Comment your move below and follow to see how clarity rewrites power. The next morning, the office no longer felt like a startup sprinting toward valuation. It felt like a courtroom without a judge. Conversations lowered when she passed. Not out of hostility, out of recalibration. People were adjusting their internal maps. Who held power yesterday was not necessarily who held it today. The CEO's door was closed again. That, more than any announcement, signaled instability. At 10 a.m., a new meeting invite appeared. Board alignment. IP resolution strategy. Interesting word choice. She entered the room to find not just legal and the CEO, but two board members dialing in remotely. The lead investor wasn't on screen, but his absence carried weight. When capital pauses, rooms shrink. The first board member spoke gently, almost kindly. We need clarity before proceeding with the $12 million due diligence. This is procedural. Procedural again. But the tone had shifted. It wasn't reassurance anymore. It was containment. The CEO leaned forward, hands clasped. We are formalizing the IP assignment immediately. Immediate solutions often arrive when leverage shifts. Legal projected a revised IP assignment agreement on the screen. Clean, updated, urgent. Her name sat prominently under inventor. A subtle but seismic correction. The document outlined full transfer of rights to the company in exchange for continued employment and equity adjustments to reflect contribution. Equity adjustments. There it was. Numbers appeared in the margins, percentages recalculated, vesting acceleration options discussed, compensation tied to valuation milestones. Numbers calm investors. Numbers anchor credibility. Neuromarketing at its most corporate. But numbers also reveal priorities. One board member cleared his throat. Given the exposure risk, it would be prudent to ensure inventor retention. Retention. She understood the subtext. This was no longer about removal. It was about stability optics before due diligence. The CEO's voice softened. We've always valued your contribution. Always. Memory edits happen fast in corporate ecosystems. She listened without interrupting. Calm listening disarms aggression. Silence forces others to fill space, often with concessions. The board member continued, "For the sake of investor confidence, we need alignment." Investor confidence. Contagious belief runs upward as much as downward. When the lead investor hesitates, boards move quickly. She finally spoke. "I'm aligned with protecting the company's future," she said evenly. "Clarity benefits everyone." No accusation, no bitterness. That unsettled them more than anger would have. The CEO nodded too quickly. "Exactly." But alignment is not surrender. She scanned the document slowly, clause by clause. The room watched. Micro expressions flickered across faces: impatience, calculation, uncertainty. Due diligence had turned from an opportunity into a stress test. She stopped at one section. Section 4.2, retroactive assignment language. Legal stiffened slightly. Standard phrasing. Standard, she repeated softly, but ambiguous. Ambiguity is leverage. The room shifted again. "If I'm assigning rights," she continued, "the compensation structure should reflect original creation, not just ongoing employment. Direct, clear, not aggressive." The board member nodded slowly. "That's reasonable." Reasonable. The CEO's jaw tightened. Negotiation is most powerful when framed as fairness, not retaliation. She wasn't asking for control. She wasn't threatening departure. She wasn't exposing anyone. She was simply anchoring value to documented origin. Numbers changed again on the screen. Equity percentage increased, vesting acceleration included. A retention bonus tied to the close of the $12 million round. The atmosphere subtly shifted from defensive to corrective. One board member leaned closer to his camera. "This ensures investor assurance." Assurance. Capital-like certainty. She signed nothing that day. Instead, she asked for 24 hours to review with independent counsel. The CEO hesitated, just slightly. Persuasion had prepared them for resistance. Instead, she offered process. Process is hard to argue against. As the meeting ended, the board member added casually, "Let's keep this internal. We don't need market noise before due diligence." Market noise. Reputation is currency, too. She walked out of the room feeling neither victorious nor defeated, just steady. At her desk, Slack was unusually quiet. People sense tectonic shifts even when announcements haven't been made. A private message arrived from the senior engineer again. "Are you staying?" "Interesting question." She replied, "I'm protecting what I built." No more, no less. By 5:30 p.m., rumors had reshaped into cautious respect. Social proof was realigning. When investors question leadership decisions, teams listen. Her phone buzzed once more. Unknown number again. This time she answered. "Hi," a composed voice said. "This is from the lead investor's office. We appreciate your professionalism." Professionalism. Translation. Leverage recognized. "We're moving forward once documentation is secured," the voice continued. "Your cooperation is noted." Noted. In corporate language, that word travels. She hung up and looked out the window at the fading city light. The skyline reflected in the glass like a double exposure. One version visible, one beneath the surface. The CEO had tried to remove her from a project. Instead, due diligence had recentered her. But alignment meetings are not the end of recalibration. They are the beginning of it. And what the board would discover next would test not just IP ownership, but leadership itself. By the fourth day, the building had learned a new rhythm. Emails were shorter. Meetings started on time. Legal walked faster. Due diligence has a scent, like ozone before a storm. Invisible, but electric. An external audit team arrived at 9:15 a.m. Sharp suits, neutral expressions, encrypted laptops. They didn't smile much. They didn't need to. Their authority came from process, and process is immune to charisma. The CEO gathered the leadership team in the main conference room again. This time, the blinds were fully open. Transparency performed. "We're aligned," he began. "Documentation is being finalized. Investor confidence remains strong." Remains. Language reveals anxiety when you listen carefully. She sat quietly at the far end of the table, no longer the center of tension, no longer dismissed either, just present. The lead auditor connected to the shared repository. "We'll begin with codebase origin verification and commit history validation. Technical, neutral, devastatingly precise. Screens filled with timelines, commit logs stretching back 2 years. Her name repeated across early architecture commits. Initial framework decisions, core algorithm scaffolding, security layer design, patterns don't lie." The auditor zoomed in on the first functional prototype milestone. "Primary contributor?" he asked. Legal answered, but this time there was no hesitation. "She was." Was. Past tense. Interesting. The auditor nodded. "And the IP assignment for this milestone?" Silence, thinner now. "The revised agreement is in review," Legal said carefully. "In review. Corporate for not yet secured." The auditor's face didn't change. "Due diligence requires executed documentation prior to capital release." Capital release. Such a clean phrase for power transfer. The CEO shifted his posture, trying to regain narrative momentum. "We've resolved the inventor matter internally." Internally. But money doesn't operate internally. The auditor continued scrolling. "We also require clarity on governance decisions made within 72 hours of due diligence initiation." There it was. The room stiffened. "Specifically," he added, "the removal of the primary inventor from project leadership." Air pressure changed again. No one had expected that question to surface so quickly. Persuasion had framed her removal as strategic restructuring. But due diligence doesn't consume narratives, it consumes records. The CEO straightened. "That was a management decision." "Timing?" the auditor asked. "Measured. Surgical." The board member on screen cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should contextualize." "Context is helpful," the auditor replied calmly, "but documentation is required." Documentation. Always the same word. Always heavier than opinion. She watched without interrupting. This was not her battle to ignite. It was their decision to explain. The CEO spoke carefully. "We believed operational efficiency required redistribution of leadership roles." Believed. The auditor typed something into his notes. Belief doesn't carry valuation weight. Another screen appeared. Internal Slack exports requested under audit scope. The timestamps were merciless. Removal announcement posted hours before investor IP clarification email arrived. Sequence matters. Sequence shapes intent. The board member shifted in his seat again. "Let's remain focused on forward resolution." Forward. A favorite word of people cornered by past decisions. The auditor nodded. "Forward resolution requires retroactive clarity." Retroactive clarity. There it was again. The fracture point. She felt no triumph. Just a steady recognition of gravity correcting imbalance. By mid-afternoon, the audit team requested a separate call with her. Private. Documented. She entered a smaller conference room where the lead auditor waited with a single legal associate. We're verifying inventor attribution and corporate conduct alignment, he explained. Alignment. The word of the week. Can you confirm authorship of the original architecture? Yes. Can you confirm whether you were consulted prior to removal? No. Simple answers. The auditor nodded. Thank you. He didn't smile, but he didn't need to. On her way out, she passed the CEO in the hallway. His expression wasn't anger now, it was recalculation. Power had not disappeared from him, it had thinned, and thinning authority seeks stabilization. At 6:42 p.m., a revised IP agreement arrived in her inbox again. Cleaner language, clearer compensation, board approval attached, investor conditional approval pending signature, numbers adjusted upward, retention clause strengthened, governance language softened, no mention of her removal, strategic omission. She read every line slowly. When leverage is silent, it must be precise. Outside, the city lights reflected against the office glass like constellations rearranging themselves. Inside, reputation was undergoing similar realignment. A message popped up from the senior engineer once more. I heard the investor asked about leadership stability. Heard. Rumors now moved in her favor. She typed back. Stability requires structure. Nothing emotional. Just structural truth. At 8:03 p.m., her phone buzzed again. This time, the CEO. Can we talk tomorrow? He asked. No authority in his tone, no performance, just negotiation. She paused before answering. Because in corporate ecosystems, timing is leverage, and tomorrow would not be about revenge. It would be about terms. The next morning, the sky hung low in silver, like the city itself was holding its breath. She arrived earlier than usual, not to prove anything, not to perform dedication, simply because clarity prefers quiet rooms. The CEO was already inside the main conference room when she walked in. No board members, no auditors, no legal team buffering language, just him. For the first time all week, the power dynamic wasn't amplified by witnesses. It was distilled. He stood when she entered, a small, almost subconscious gesture. Respect often surfaces when leverage becomes visible. Thank you for meeting, he began. No preamble, no strategic framing. Stretched first. Silence is a negotiation stretched first. Silence is a negotiation tool. It invites truth to surface faster than pressure ever could. I handled it poorly, he said finally. Not dramatically, not theatrically, just plainly. She didn't interrupt. He continued. I thought consolidating leadership before the $12 million due diligence would demonstrate control. Investors like decisiveness. He wasn't wrong. Investors do like decisiveness, but they like stability more. And I miscalculated, he admitted. There it was. Not an apology wrapped in justification. Just acknowledgement. Outside the glass walls, employees moved between desks, carrying laptops, coffee cups, and cautious glances. The company hadn't collapsed. It hadn't exploded either. It had rebalanced. I built this company, he said quietly. And I built the system it runs on, she replied, just as calmly. No accusation, just symmetry. The air between them felt different now, not combative, not tense, honest. He slid a printed document across the table. The final IP assignment agreement. Board approved, investor pre-cleared, compensation structure adjusted upward again, equity realigned, retention guaranteed, governance language clarified to include her in core strategic decisions, not as a favor, as structure. We need you, he said. Need. An honest word, rare in executive vocabulary. She reviewed the document once more, even though she already knew its contents. Precision matters at the moment of closure. The revised valuation model sat in the appendix. $80 million projected post-money. Her adjusted equity translated into a number that would have sounded impossible 2 years ago when she was debugging code at 2 a.m. with borrowed office chairs and second-hand monitors. Numbers can seduce, but numbers backed by recognition empower. You understand, she said evenly. This isn't about removal. It's about precedent. He nodded. If the inventor can be erased before due diligence, she continued, the system isn't stable. Stability, the word that investors crave more than charisma. He leaned back slightly, absorbing that. We won't repeat it, he said. Not defensive, not theatrical, measured. Outside, the audit team was wrapping up final compliance checks. Slack activity had normalized. Marketing was drafting announcement language again, this time more cautious, less triumphant. Contagious confidence had been replaced by structured assurance. She signed the agreement, not with flourish, not with hesitation, with clarity. The pen moved smoothly across the paper. Ink anchoring structure. The CEO exhaled, a sound almost imperceptible but unmistakably relieved. Due diligence resumed that afternoon. By 3:47 p.m., the lead investor's office sent formal confirmation, IP documentation verified, governance alignment acknowledged. Proceeding to final review stage. No fireworks, just approval. And approval, in corporate life, is louder than applause. Word traveled quickly through the office, not in whispers now, but in subtle recalibration. The senior engineer stopped by her desk. Glad you're staying, he said. She smiled slightly. I never left. That was the truth. You can remove someone from a slide deck. You can reassign a title. You can announce a restructuring. But you cannot rewrite origin without documentation. As evening settled over the city, the skyline shimmered in soft gold reflections. Inside the office, lights dimmed one by one. The CEO stepped out of his office and paused by her desk. Lunch tomorrow? He asked. There was no hierarchy in the question, just partnership. Sure, she said, because this wasn't a victory over him. It was a victory for structure. 24 hours had nearly destabilized a company. Documentation restored it. The $12 million due diligence would close soon. Valuation headlines would circulate. Press releases would speak of vision, momentum, leadership. Most people would never know how close it came to fracture. And that was fine. Not all power needs to be loud. Some of it simply needs to be signed.